Buenas tardes.
Afternoon. Thank you, ICAO and the Kingdom of the United Arab Emirates for this opportunity to address at this landmark of the GISS 2025 on behalf of the Aircraft Victims Families Federation International, recognized by the ICAO as the organization to bring the unified voice of victims to official events. I want to start by remembering the more of 300 victims of the air tragedies that occurred in 2024, that it has become the deadliest year of aviation since 2018. 2025 has not started any better. Two serious tragedies caused more than 75 deaths. I want to send all our love and solidarity to these affected families. We know well what they are suffering. One of the foundations of the ICAO regulations is to disseminate, explain, and give relevance so that they can be implemented, because otherwise there is no priority between what is mandatory and what is important. The objective is included in the ICAO policy on assistance to aircraft accident victims and their families into the national plans. However, it has had very little follow-up amongst its 193 member states since its approval at the 38th ICAO Assembly in 2013. I'm convinced that this is not due to a lack of interest, but rather a lack of information and knowledge. AFI was established in response to each new tragedy, driven by a sense of helpfulness. Belonging to the victims' clubs is not all pleasant nor is voluntary. One day, one person's relatives got onto a plane for a variety of reasons, but the flight did not reach its destination. A series of events then automatically take place, and it does not give us time to decide what to do, because other people are deciding on what should be done in each moment, sometimes without taking into consideration those who suffer. Air safety is based on the constant evaluation of aviation. It never stops. The dynamism in all aspects, industry, governments, agents involved in aviation, demands constant innovation that makes the industry more efficient, sustainable, and safer. But what happens to passengers when they don't arrive at their destination? My message is addressed to their heart rather than to reason, because the Federation does not have resources or aid not only to carry out these activities or to promote actions that achieve the objective that we dream of, that states have implemented ICAO's policy on assistance to victims and families in their national air emergency response. Please watch this video.
Que está en la pista de arriba, que eso es un avión, Susana, que se acaba de estrellar un avión, me cago en Dios. Que sí, Susana.
Y ahí es un poco donde me empecé a dar cuenta de lo que había pasado, pero lo que yo veía era gente en el suelo.
Me fui al aeropuerto, me volví loca preguntando por todos lados. Nadie era capaz de decirme nada.
No sabes nada, no sabes la cifra de fallecidos, no sabes la cifra de heridos, de supervivientes, no sabes nada.
Yo me iba enterando de ciertas cosas pues porque oía, porque alguien llamaba, por los que estábamos allí.
No había una lista, porque no había lista de pasajeros.
Y aquellas personas dieron los nombres de los supervivientes, según ellos, y se le preguntó por varias personas. Y los demás han fallecido. Allí nos quedamos en un caos tremendo. Hubo personas, porque aquel local donde nos metieron era muy pequeño.
These 4 videos summarize the suffering of the people affected by an air tragedy. They are families of the flight JK5022. However, what they are saying is repeated today in any part of the world where a plane crash occurs. This was in 2008. Do you think that informative treatment given to the affected families by the latest accidents occurred a few weeks ago in the United States has changed anything? Families crying and waiting for news about their loved ones. Images repeated over and over of the collision between the plane and the helicopter. Could you think of the suffering of those who know that the relatives were inside? The pain of fathers, mothers, and relatives is unimaginable. It is impossible not to be moved with these testimonies. It led me to create the Aircrash Victims Families Federation International. It doesn't matter about the country, creed, race, culture. Respect for the singularities of everyone is one of its main assets. Our goal is to bring the single voice of our members of the bodies that to decide on civil aviation. Last year marked the 80th anniversary of the signing of 7th December of the gave rise to the prestigious ICAO, which until 1998 did not become aware that accidents produce victims, and these are part of the safety chain of international civil aviation, to the extent that great advances are produced from the lessons learned in air accidents. The associations and victims born of these tragedies are members of ACVFFI. If I had to define with a single word the feeling that unites people in dramatic situations, it would be empathy. Human beings, despite the diversity of cultures and language, we share emotions and feelings. In an air disaster, the most relevant quality to overcome all those initial obstacles is empathy, which is the ability to understand the feelings and emotions of another person and try to objectively and rationally experience what the other is feeling. Managing a plane crash leaves deep traces on the people responsible of treating them. That's why it's so important they are prepared, although we will never be like in reality. The beginning was the revision of Circular 285 published by the General Secretariat 2001. We have to turn to other organizations such as NTSB, whose chair listened to our request during 2011 conference in Washington and decided to support us. This conference, attended by Director General ICAO Air Navigation Bureau, who joined in this task, it seems that it was a woman's issue that none of the NTSB and the ICAO and myself, but Hans Efrenson, President of American Aircraft Victims Families of America, was essential. We had been trying for years to revise the circular. At the time, he was 90 years old and had a long career in assisting victims and their families, having lost his young daughter in 1983 in the crash flight KAL 007 shot down by Russia during the Cold War. That was the first step of many. Visibility is essential for our work. Showing in front of audiences from different countries and cultures can we inevitably achieve the personal commitment to promote updates of documents, create new ones, or simply get each new member state to implement ICAO Doc 9998 and Doc 9973. Here are the most important ones, although not all of those that have been achieved. With document 9998, approved first by the Council on 1st March 2013 and endorsed by 38th ICAO General Assembly in 2013, we managed to have included in Annex 9 as recommended practice 8.46 and the US SWAP. In 2022, we managed to update it to the standard 8.47 of the Annex 9 so that it would be mandatory. All our efforts are aimed at achieving our primary objective, that no state is left behind in the implementation of ICAO's victim assistance policy, since it was a document endorsed by 193 member states. In the memory of those who have lost their lives in air accidents and for the safety of those who travel by plane, may I request that your states, with the assistance of the IPACs that have been presented, become aware of an implemented ICAO policy. This is a long-term investment that will provide peace of mind for professionals who must face the management of emergency. More importantly, it will alleviate the additional suffering suffered by the victims. IPACs from the ICAO are implemented package intended to assist and guide state authorities and all transport agents in the development of their own family assistance plans following ICAO Doc 9998 and 99973. Information, implementation, follow-up to achieve the main objectives set in this slide. It is though that the three main agents are states, airlines, and airports. Following the unfortunate incident, they are also joined the insurers, manufacturers, industry, lawyers, and victim assistance companies. And in our experience, states tend to leave the responsibility to these companies instead of implementing their own regulations. The insurance policy contracted by the airline pays for these GISS services, which may be one of the reasons why resources for the affected families are reduced. It is important to note that these companies can disappear and that only the state guarantees assistance to its citizens affected by a plane crash. On the other hand, families and victims are defenseless in the face of the imbalance of infinitive resources between the aforementioned parties. Promoting an ethical code of action is another objective of ACVFFI for the incoming years. It is estimated by Boeing report that between 1959 and 2023, more than 30,000 people lost their lives in fatal accidents involving Boeing aircraft worldwide. While these figures might not seem significant in the context of aviation, it is important to recognize that each of these lives represents a person, a family, and a project. Aviation is and will be the safest transport. But safety is written with the lives of each of the people who die in plane crashes. Without their sacrifice, no progress would have been made, correcting errors and defects in aircrafts and systems to avoid more deaths. No matter how hard we try to prevent accidents, they will continue to happen, and even more so given the projected passengers numbers by 2050 in the ICAO Strategy Plan 2026-2050. To conclude, I would like to tell you about the upcoming challenges of ACVFFI. First and second ICAO Symposium on Assistance to Victims and Their Families held in 2021 in Gran Canaria and in 2024 in Haarlem, Netherlands. It is the only event held by the ICAO every 3 years dedicated to assisting victims. The third will take place in 2027, International Day of the Victims of Accident and their families, every February 20 at the proposal of ACVFFI. Please join in this very significant remembrance on February 20. Personal workshops to promote ICAO's policy on victim assistance. Montreal Convention to promote ratification by non-signatory states in order to organize a forum to initiate agreements on compensation and facilitation. Safer Skies Forum, inclusion of ACVFFI as more than just a signatory of its first and second forum. Facilitation conference in April 2025 in Qatar achieved the implementation of Doc 999A in more state members. I will end up as saying the horror of a plane crash lasts as long as it is dedicated, and for the family affected, it means lifetime of suffering. The aviation sector move considerable amounts of money. Please dedicate a small part of it to be ready to help your citizens. The ICAO policy has been in place since 2013, so now it's up to the states, airlines, and airports to incorporate it into their emergency response plans. Thank you so much.